Hello, 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 and good morning. Welcome to Feedback Friday. It is Art Edition. I'm your host, Jacob. We're doing art today. Hello, and welcome to the stream. Hello, Frank, Jeremy, Traco. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're having a good one. It's probably going to be a short and sweet one today. I am going to be doing an item illustration, and that should wrap up uh, on stream from start to finish. I hope that's the goal. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, welcome, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hey Charlie, you just sitting on the arm of my chair, just like that. All right, little weirdo, love it. All right, so we are illustrating an egg today. I'm gonna jump over boop, and just get right into it, I think. So yeah, as you can see, I have the mythical Giant King down on the bottom of the screen as my reference. You probably have an idea of what I'm doing with the egg based off of that. Let me check to make sure that I have my recording going. Record time lapse has initiated. We are good. So yeah, it'll be a pretty like streamlined stream. I think I'm gonna try and kind of focus, dive right into the art, and go from start to finish today. Uh, at the end, I'll wrap up with the replay. We'll see how long it takes us, though. But yeah, that's the goal. Is big egg, a giant egg, a mythically giant egg, perhaps. Yeah, so a little bit of a spoiler that we have the mythical giant king egg as an egg, but I feel like that one was probably one many could predict based off of kind of like what's new since the spring egg hunt. What would be a interesting goal? There is other bountiful beanstalk eggs you can expect, of course. But yeah, so that's the plan. That's the plan. Also, a little side update, not work related, but I'm having fun with it and it's nearly done. I've been working on kind of like my leatherworking craft, as I've mentioned before, and I'm experimenting with painting on leather. I managed to make a cool, like, fireball, Hadoken kind of thing. And I even used my lighting technique where it's like the light source is burning your eyes, and it actually worked on this too, so I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah, it's like custom sheath for my throwing axe. So, here you go. Fun little thing I'm doing now. Yeah, anywho, back to the art here. Thank you very much. Yeah, having fun with it. I have a lot of people I throw with that have added themselves to a little crafting list of mine because they're interested in what I do. Uh, yeah, it's nice to kind of apply my art skills in all kinds of different avenues. But I probably haven't painted on a physical canvas. Probably, I mean, I did it more regularly, at least before I started MouseHunt, but like I've probably only tried painting physically a handful of times since, because it was not really like as fun for me as digital painting has always been. But I still enjoy it. It's got like different challenges, and an art challenge is always an interesting thing to me. But yeah, I do like what digital offers in terms of just kind of like the like controlling creative kind of avenues I can utilize. So yeah, leather painting is a bit different. It's pretty cool though. All right, so for this egg, I'm trying to decide how I want to kind of like show that it's a giant, right? Because we already have the Mythweaver egg, um, and I don't want it to feel too similar, right? But it's the same character, but they're in a different kind of like form. And also, like I want I don't know, like the Mythweaver is kind of like this, kind of like angled down. Looks like it's asleep. This one, I'm kind of thinking if we do like an upward angle and we actually kind of like scale it so that it feels bigger or something. I don't know. It's hard to actually like change the size of it uh, through, actually like the display of the egg will be the same as all the other eggs. They take the same kind of dimensions. But if I kind of like include like the body a bit more in the design, that might feel like it's scaled up. Maybe we do like the belt up here. Have that breaking the silhouette a little bit. It's one of the things I really enjoy about these eggs is having kind of like such a simple shape and then playing with it, but maintaining the overall kind of shape and kind of not really losing that, but playing within its boundaries. So one of the things we let ourselves do is we actually like mess with the silhouette of it a little bit, but not too much that it isn't an egg. So, like, I won't give it arms or anything, but I like the idea that it kind of like, I mean, maybe if its cloak is like against the floor, is that weird? I'm not sure if it feels egg enough if I change the base of this. Maybe if it's tucked in here. Yeah, that might feel more egg shape. Because I like the trim on the outfit, the kind of gilding, uh, embossing. What is that called? Embroidery. That's the word I was looking for. Um, yeah, like I like the embroidery on the robes, and so I want to show that. But I think this feels different from the original Mythweaver egg, so let me pull that in as well, just so we have that as reference. Actually, I'm going to use the JPEG because it's got a white backdrop. I don't have one. Never mind. Pull that back. We could also get the vines kind of like interacting with the character or the egg. Okay. Having like a tiny thing looking up at it could work too. Hello, hello. From the neck of the woods. How's it going, El Murphy? So good morning to Diamond, Stephen, Jeremy, Iggy, Frank, hello. Probably said hello to at least one of you already, but how is it going? Hope it's going well. Excited. I have a new shipment of leather coming in potentially today, and I got some really nice fine brushes that should be pretty good for doing that leather painting. Gonna do more experiments with that. One of the people that's getting a sheath made is a big Lord of the Rings fan, and what we want to try to do, it's definitely ambitious, is you know, the like those statues on either side of the river. I don't remember the name of it, but they're like holding their hands up. I want to try to see if it's possible to like paint that scene. That might be a bit crazy. Almost certainly is, but it's an interesting thing to experiment at least. Have a bunch of leather scraps, so I'm gonna basically take one of those and see if I can do effectively a landscape painting on it. I've seen some stuff people have painted on leather before, and it's pretty impressive. So I feel like it's possible, but I don't know if I have the knowledge and experience to do something like that. But that's why we try things and experiment. Okay. So I almost kind of like the this design having the face be tiny. One thing I'm thinking to really kind of like sell the scale of this is to actually like put clouds around it, and kind of like make it feel like it's so giant it's among the clouds. So we could I've done this one, like the cloud thing before with there was like one of the floating islands eggs, I think. The pirate egg, was it? I think there was a pirate ship like among clouds, if I am recalling correctly. I might be mistaken. But something like this could be a way to kind of suggest how gigantic it is. And also, I think another way will be kind of like the light grading on it, where I don't really kind of like use deep shadows. I have those kind of like filled in with just atmospheric light, um, as if it's like so far away that the light scattering has kind of done that. It's like if you're looking at mountains really far away and there's like a shaded side, it's actually not really very dark. Or yeah, whatever is really far away, the shadows just kind of fall out. Yeah, I think those combined will kind of like give a little sense of this thing being absolutely massive, as well the kind of like looking up at it as opposed to looking down on it will help with just kind of like the perspective feeling. Perhaps if I have the clouds wrapped actually around it, like we're looking underneath the cloud layer, like it's a tall building, that might also really kind of like give the idea that we're looking up at this giant thing, right? And I mean, if it's an egg and we're looking up at an egg, it's got to be a pretty big egg. So this might be a good way to do it, is like imply that we are underneath and looking up and the clouds are wrapped all around it. I think that'll work better. A little easier to get some shadows on the clouds as well because we're on the underside of them. So I think that's the play there. Yeah. Yeah, we could also have like a thin bean stalk kind of climbing up, perhaps. I don't even know if we need that extra detail. Maybe we try not to overdo it. Start simple, and then go from there, because we can always complicate things more and more, but no sense in trying to do that when it's just naturally going to add complicated elements as you develop it. Pretty normal thing for this process. Okay, I think that's gonna work. I like that. Cool. Yeah, I wanna get this done in one sitting. But I think with this idea, it shouldn't be too bad. Okay. Any other kind of main details that we need for this? So we're gonna have like the gold trim along the bottom and the frill on the hood. I'm gonna have the red belt. I might even bump the belt up to be even closer to the top, just because I think that'll look more fun. Oop. Yeah. Good. Get the bookmark belt. Get it kind of folded. It's a piece of ribbon that you'd find in like a classic tome, right? That like ribbon used to hold their page. Okay, we can hide the clouds for now, just so I can see what I'm doing. Have that a bit bunched up here. And I think that I'll have the base of this, instead of kind of like wrapping the form, um, like we're looking down on it, I'm actually going to flatten it across so that we're like right at the base of it, implying that like our eye level is like right at the bottom of this. Which will just kind of help with the idea of us looking up at this building of an egg, this skyscraper of an egg. Yeah, and I think I'm gonna bring that in here. Yeah. I have that wrinkle coming up and over just a little bit. Yeah, no, whining, that is a known factor in the mouse hunter's journey. Is if you're struggling with kind of like capturing something, collecting a specific rare drop, etc., like you could be working on it for like weeks or months, and then you like kind of like post somewhere that is considered a like a whining about it. Inevitably, like within a very short amount of time, that thing ends up happening. Uh, that's just how it works in the MouseHunt universe. So it's an expected behavior, and if you're trying to get your things, that's one of the tactics that is employed. Call out to the universe. I know I've done it. The cheese and wine. Would whining about the lack of Valor Rift journal theme work? That might, you might be onto a thing with that. I think it needs to be, because it's um, that one's more of a kind of like global. Everybody is missing that. That might need multiple voices whining about it, but you know what? That could actually do it. If enough cacophony is raised, the universe might respond about that. It's an interesting idea. An interesting idea. Sometimes it's about where you whine. Um, what parts of the universe hear it, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm gonna put the little glasses on here just because they're funny, but like not really anything else except maybe an implied mustache that's just like painted on to the egg. Okay, I'm gonna give this a flip and just kind of check to see if I like these shapes. Go move that over to be closer. Okay, I think this wrinkle isn't quite there yet. Yeah. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. do, do, do. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Thanks for the little dance there, buddy. Um, hey, I like that it's coming across as just a really big boy at least. But yeah, this is a mythical giant egg. That is the idea behind this. So I'll knock the sketch down, and I'll bring that up here, and we'll just blast the silhouette here. So we'll grab this purple, our fill here. I'm going to lighten this up just so I can see the sketch more easily. I'm just going to block it in. Oh, that's why it's not blocking in. You know, I don't need this layer. I'll keep that egg layer just in case I want to use it, but basically just making my own now. So yeah, I really want the feeling of this that we're looking up. We're underneath. Our eye line is like all the way at the floor here. You're tiny. We're just a grain of salt at the foot of this gigantic egg. Now, if these should be broken into different layers, I'm not sure. Probably not necessary. Okay, we can erase the face. Just overpaint these a little bit so we can get nice hard edges on them. Okay, do the ribbon as a layer above. Honestly, I could see this wrapping up pretty quick. Should be a very unique thing for Feedback Friday Art Edition, at least. But there is a bunch of stuff I want to get done that I will not be streaming because secrets. I don't want to spoil things. I was tempted to work on those today, but I decided against it, as it should be quite interesting to discover I'll leave it at that. I think you'll all be pretty excited by it, though. Leave it nice and vague like that. But secrets are meant to be shared. Yeah, you're right. Oh my gosh. Silly me. No, I gotta try and not spoil stuff every once in a while. It's a new thing that I'm trying. Okay. I can get the gold trim blocked in. So I actually could potentially go into the mythical Giant King file. Give me a minute to grab that because I actually created a smart object of that print. And because I did that, I can actually extract that and use it. Just dig that out. Okay, just gotta open the file. Hello. All right, let's see if I can grab it. Okay, there is that version of it, but I could swear I created, at one point I had one. Maybe I flattened it. I think I did flatten it to like liquefy it. Do I actually have, might be in my other folders. Aha, there it is. Cool, okay. Do not save that. All right, import, create file object, and you are here. Boop. Nice, okay. So now I can shrink that down. Let's say like 20%. Still enough that I can like enjoy the details here as I'm working on it. Yeah, basically this is just like an embroidery print that I kind of created for this. We can clip it as well. Sweet. All right. Honestly, like just like that, it works. But we could try and kind of get even more fancy with it by kind of like, let's say we duplicate this. Actually, make the middle one just a little bit bigger to make it feel closer to us, right? And honestly, this left one, what I'm thinking is if we skew it Thank you, Michelle. All right, I'm gonna put that up to 25%. Pretty good. And then the right one, this can be skewed as well. Perfect. Okay. So there's a little bit more dimension to that. It's not crazy different, but what we can do is duplicate this, and I'll hide that one right now, and I'll use a clipping mask to erase that, and we'll bring this one back and clipping mask that, and then move the whole thing over, like it's being folded by that wrinkle, right? And then I'll even duplicate it again and just mirror it. And squish it. I said squish it horizontally, since it's wrapping around the side of this. Cool. So that looks like it's folded behind a wrinkle there, at least. This one's a little more difficult, but I do want to see what I can do with that. I'll duplicate this just to preserve it, but if I merge that and turn it into not a smart object anymore, I can use my liquefy tool here. And just kind of bend these just a little bit. It's not like absolutely necessary, but that wave really kind of suggests that crumpled wrinkle a little bit better now. I'm pretty happy with that. I might even get a little bit on the middle one here. So again, I'm going to duplicate this just to have it in case I want to change my mind. I should be able to just rasterize this layer. Just seeing what that one is. Layer settings. Oh, rasterize. There we go. Boop. Now liquefy tool, and just kind of gently might even fold that one in just a little bit. Sure. Good enough. All right, and I will put that on embroider layer, or a group folder. Embroidery. And this, if I put as a normal layer, through layer, oh, the whole folder needs to be clipped as a normal, right? That work? think that worked. Yeah, that worked. Cool. Accidentally turned that back on. We're good now. And now, because this is one folder, I can put a clipping mask on the whole folder and do something like this, where I use a color dodge. That's not doing it. Hello? Oh, right. I get it. How should I do this? So if I unclip that, make a selection, and then I mask it, that works. Okay. It's gold thread. Boom. This is one of the reasons why I like digital, is you can just kind of like use a little bit of kind of like special tools, but like you need to know what you're doing to do it. It's not just like a gimme like metalify things, you know. But there are tricks like that with traditional painting, where if you know techniques and stuff, you can create effects. I know that when I was doing like mixed media studies and stuff, there was some fun materials, like using stuff like salt when you're doing watercolor. You can kind of create really cool textures, also by doing like washes and stuff like that. So it's not like digital is the only space where you can create really cool effects. I mean, having a physical thing that's painted as well creates stuff that digital can't have, where like when you move around a physical piece, it can kind of like change depending on the surface, lighting, and all kinds of stuff. And digital, it controls that, which is good and bad. You know, like one of the things about the sheath painting is this looks like it's glowing even in shadow, which is kind of cool. It actually looked more convincing when I held my camera up to it, and my smart camera read that as a light source and adjusted lights around, and like it was really fascinating to see that I tricked a camera with it. So that was pretty fun to do. Yeah, I don't know. And like the glossiness and matteness of a surface will like change it. That is also something that can fight you. So, for example, with the leather painting, I like how it looks, and the dye on the leather is like, that's great. I love the colors, but I have to seal the paint in as well because it'll potentially rub off, because it's literally holding an axe and protecting it. So it's going to be taking some scuffing, being thrown into a bag and dragged around and all kinds of stuff. So it needs to be protected. But when you seal it, the sealant that I use, it like ends up being really shiny, and it darkens the leather dye. So like the dye itself becomes darker and shinier, and it really impacts the overall color dramatically. But that's hard to do. Oops, I was on the wrong layer. That's hard to do anything about because I still need to seal it. So unless I can find the right material to seal it with that isn't going to change the look too dramatically. I know that like what I use, Resolene, is like very shiny compared to some other things, but it's also like better at sealing and waterproofing. So trade-offs. Okay. Yeah, generally when you make something shiny, um, you're increasing the ability for the light to reflect off of that surface, right? So like when you get the correct angle, you're seeing a reflection of the light that is hitting that surface, but it's bouncing off without kind of like getting absorbed and kind of like being, you know, uh, bounced off by effectively being absorbed. Um, in a sense, like it's like mirroring off the surface instead of going into the material and like kicking off only a more limited wavelength. So it ends up getting darkened as there's less light kind of like reacting with the surface, and having that light bounce off. All the light is reflecting off the surface, not all, but like more, right? So the whole thing gets like darker. It kind of like takes on a sort of kind of wetness to it as like the material locks in kind of like the um, the finish. And so like depending on the angle, it'll look quite dark or it'll look quite bright because it's reflecting the light source, instead of like a really neutral kind of matte non-glossy surface, which is just reflecting, not reflecting, but like Lambertian reflection, I guess, more light. So I just need to, like, when I'm dyeing leather, need to like be aware of how much the protective finish is going to darken it. Because a few that I've done, I've dyed the leather, but I didn't seal the whole thing, so they're not like as weatherproofed. And long-term wise, I think it'd be better to waterproof it. Just make them last longer and do their jobs, because it's not in your pocket necessarily all the time, like a wallet. But yeah. Just things to figure out as I practice that craft. All right. So I think I'll do the shadow on the cloak, the robe. So overall, I'm gonna kind of darken it to be closer to kind of like the mythical giant's outfit. And on the surfaces kind of facing upwards, we get more of this sky gradient. Also because we want to get that like implied atmospheric scattering, we'll just kind of soften that up the higher up it is. And then we can erase away. Actually, you know what? I wouldn't even erase that, because I actually want that to be the darkest it gets. Again, like looking at mountains on the horizon, the shadows really fall off. So what we'll do here is create a new clipping mask. So I'm going to save this. And we'll just hit the highlights on it now. And I think I'm even going to drop this sketch down even more. The spacing on this one's not awesome. Maybe if that's widened there, that comes in, that's better. Still not great, but better, I guess. Okay, so this is the light layer where the surfaces are being hit by the light source. So that's a soft edge. It's rolling away from the light source. So I'll soften that. Soften that. This is the underside here, so that's got a harder edge to it. And this as well. But what we'll do is we'll have the underside of the chest here above the belt is rolling away from the light source. So we'll soften that. But it also is having its cast shadow from the portion above here. So that's I'm imagining the light source is like pretty much directly above for this. Okay, and because the light source and this object is just so far away and so big, I'm just going to soften this edge just a little bit. We don't need it to be like a really hard edge shadow. If it was like a small object and we were close up and these edges were all close together, it would be a harder edge shadow, but I want to really kind of like make it feel very big and very far away, so softer shadows overall. Talking in the scale of landscape stuff, right? All right, and then this is going to be very smooth transition here. Okay. Works for me. I don't think I want the shadows to be quite as dark as they are, to be honest. So I'm going to mix a little more of this light in here. And then that lets us erase away to create a little bit more shadow where the wrinkles are kind of happening. Just blend a little more light in that. Great. Okay. So now Can like erase the underside of that. And that, and here as well. And this can have a hard edge here, because that's a completely different surface that we're seeing at that edge. And I think I'll get some nice shadow on the gold trim too. It's a little bit more of a tight wrinkle there, so we can have a little bit harder of an edge. Cool. All right, and then we'll have a little bit of a cast shadow from the belt. And I'll just use a clipping mask in case I decide to change where that shadow is. But I think it's pretty simple here. Just on that very bottom edge of it. Nice. All right. I think that just needs to be a little bit more in shadow right under there. Let's give this a vertical flip, because I rarely take that perspective, but when we're just trying to think of like, how does it look in 3 dimensions without really trying to think about like, what is this object, and getting too caught up in that idea, can just help us to look at it as just shapes. So now it's just like an underlit object. And what this is kind of like suggesting to me is I think I really want to kind of like push the lighting a little bit further right up here. Just kind of help sell the very top of this object. Cool. Yeah, I think that's feeling more dimensional than it was. Do I want to... I'm just going to get rid of that bit of the egg there. Boop, 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 boop. Cool. Okay. Just gonna put that back. But I like. Feels nice and 3D. And turn the sketch off completely. Take stock of where we're at with this. All right. Now the actual trim on that kind of like collar, we could put the gold on that edge, and I think that'll be a nice thing for it as well. So add another layer here. Grab that gold. This will help just kind of like let it kind of read as well. Hmm. Yeah, thumb will come out in front there. Need to give it a little bit of light. That works. Okay, and then add a bit of shine to that metal. Nice. And then also the trim, there'd be some on the top portion of the top of the hood here. Which, depending on how I want to show this, would I have it do that? Need to look at the other Mythweaver. Okay, that goes up and behind where the ear would be. Right. So I guess what I could do is have this have a hole for the ears, effectively. Which makes sense. Cool. Yeah, I think that I'll just kind of have trail off. I remember I kind of worked out how the whole hood actually worked, but now I don't feel like this shape is kind of like conducive to it as it is a very rotund egg up here, so it is what it is. I think that'll be fine. Okay. Let's see. We could do the face. Give this a save. Also, I'll change the drop shadow. And I think I also want to give a little bit darker areas for that metal. But we'll go kind of more saturated red. Yeah, that's pretty enough. Okay. Yeah, we don't want to get like really deep shadows so much. Again, it's supposed to feel like really far away and scaled up, so I might even kind of like just fade out everything a little bit. Just kind of wash it all out with a kind of gray, in a sense, just like a light blue, to just kind of like put some atmosphere between us and this gigantic egg. One of the things I'll also want to do is kind of like create a little bit of a Fresnel kind of edge to this, where basically as the surfaces roll away from us, we're getting more and more light scattering onto those edges. And I might actually put this like over the whole egg. So if I put this like all the way on the outside, I make that a normal group, then I can just have this light just kind of like scatter over everything. And if I do a lighten or screen, what would be better? Screen or lighten? I'll go with screen for now. Yeah, basically, I'm just going to take like a gentle brush, or actually I'll do this flat brush. Right, and we're just letting the atmosphere steal it away a little bit. So that ended up being more of an atmosphere pass than the Fresnel reflection. But maybe we can get a little bit of both. Yeah, we just, because of that, it kind of ends up softening the outer edges. We lose definition Because it's basically like taking the atmosphere right around it and just kind of like losing the very outer edges to that. Idea being that it's reflecting like at the very, very outside edges. Doesn't work as naturally for cloth, or so it would feel like, but you kind of get like fuzzy kind of surface, right? So all those tiny little fibers are actually going to be picking up that light and scattering it just a little bit. Because the eggs are on a white backdrop, this just kind of like really blooms away. There we go. It feels pretty massive now. I kind of like how the surfaces that are like facing towards us and the closest to us, they have the most kind of shadow and presence. Yeah, I don't know what's inside this egg. It's an interesting question. Who knows? No oxygen stream. Uh-oh. You're going to be completely out of oxygen before you hit one, huh? I know that some people, if they want to like maintain their dive, if they're about to run out, I believe that there are some events, or there used to be, I don't know if it's still a thing anymore, but there used to be certain things you could do to get oxygen canisters or something. Like I think there was event trade-ins or the King's card or something like that, where you could kind of like dip that and get like just a little bit more extension to your run. But yeah, I don't know how feasible it is anymore. Great. Okay, so for the Myth Weaver's face. Can do like drop shadow here. If we think we need that. Resurfacing to get eggs, yeah, that's fair. Okay, yeah, it is in the King's cart. I haven't actually had to do that because I've never tried to like extend a run beyond kind of like, ooh, I'm really close to like getting that layer and I have some canisters already, so boop, do that. But yeah, seems like the King's cart is one of the methods. Yeah, if you need to get the the dock mice, the city mice, then good enough time to do that resurfacing. But after you get a few eggs from the layers, etc., right? All right, so we got shadow on the face, the drop shadow. I like the idea of having the egg itself was painted and then it's wearing this outfit effectively. That's good. Yeah, I'm glad that the King's Cart has that utility because it hasn't always been easy to kind of like figure out like what is good stuff to stock in here. Um, you know, we want it to be able to kind of like give utility without breaking stuff, but it's I think it's acceptable for like older areas to have some kind of compression potential with it. Where it's like we don't necessarily want you stuck there for like half a year. You know, we want you to be able to catch up with your friends and get to end game stuff. So putting utility in there where you can kind of like just be a more effective hunter without trivializing the gameplay is probably kind of like the ideal. But we don't always kind of like sit down and think like, hey, is there anything we should add to the King's Cart or like other kind of unique niche shops and stuff like that. So we're trying to do a little bit more of that where we kind of like, all right, when is the right time to look at this? If we haven't done it for a while, let's just do it anyways. Okay, so I like that it's just this simple flat painting over it, but I'm thinking I could have the eyes glow. Really simple, like it's just super flat and basic paint job on this. And actually what I think I'll do is I'll actually skew this to like make it even more smushed down and flat. Can I liquefy both layers at the same time? No. Just merge that, it's fine. And then I like the little glasses on top as well. So we'll do that. I think I'll just have those painted on as well. And we'll put them at like the reading glasses height. Okay, and then I'll fade those out a bit more. Cool. All right, so the drop shadow for this, we're going to change that. So we'll hide that one. We'll create a new one. And this one is going to be just like pretty big and flat. We'll drop this outside of the group though. Because we're basically looking at like a skyscraper casting a shadow, right? That's the idea here. I think the ribbon could use a little something too. It's not quite. Okay, and then because that shadow is so far away, it's going to get softer edge. Cool. All right, give that a save. Let's give it a flip as well. And I might change the eyes to actually feel like they're glowing, just because I think that's fun. Because of the ear hole, it kind of looks like it's got like droopy, sad ears. I might tweak that just a little bit. Pretty okay though. I need to do a hotkey where I flip it vertically too. I don't use that one enough. And I think I could use it more. So actually, let's see if we can do that. I'm doing pretty good on time. So shortcut settings. So I don't mind kind of like, we haven't even hit lunch. Holy cow. Crushing it today. Might actually wrap up by lunchtime. I remember there were times when I did streams that were so effective I was able to like finish stuff in one sitting. Ain't that nice? All right, so what would be, it's not a zoom, be menu command, view, I imagine. This is not alphabetical. Flip vertical, here we go. I'm gonna edit that shortcut and do Alt that. Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Sweet. I like it. I also have a hotkey that I don't tend to use very much about rotating. This can be very useful for drawing straight lines because I pretty much freehand everything. I don't tend to use like line tools very often or create like selections. Sometimes I'll use like the shift to draw a line, but not always. And one way to do it is by rotating, where like there's often a direction that when you're painting, it can be easier to draw like a certain shape when you're going in a very natural direction for your hand. And so, like when I'm drawing in my sketchbook, I'll sometimes rotate the page to do that more naturally, but I don't tend to do it digitally. So, set up a hotkey where I can do that more easily. And then a reset button to put the rotation back to where it was. Boom, 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 boom. All right. But yeah, so now we're at, this is the egg orientation naturally. Let's also look at this in grayscale. Color profile, preview settings, set you to grayscale value check. Okay. So we can enjoy seeing just kind of like what reads and what doesn't. So the ribbon on the robe is at kind of like the same value as the robe itself. And so that can be good or bad. Right now it kind of blends in with the robe, which is acceptable, but I'm wondering if we want it to stand out in a different way. Because if they're really close together but like very different colors, so like the values are same, the colors are very different, what ends up happening is you get this like clash visually, and there's like a hard line that once you cross it, it becomes awful to look at. Like I'll give you like the one of the worst kind of examples of it is like, so we'll have kind of this really saturated red, and then we go and we get this like really saturated cyan on top of that. But those are still going to work because the values are different. But if I take the luminosity of this and I apply it here, now it's like, God, oh, it hurt, like it sucks to look at that. And it's actually not even quite right. I'm still off a little bit. Need to brighten it up a bit. Let's see. Darken it just a little more. That's the color. Okay, so let's see if I can do this. So that just, like, your eyes probably hate me right now, right? And that's because it's like horribly different. Like they're clashing color, like the opposite colors, but like the values are so close together that like it's clashing, right? So got to be a little bit careful about when you have things that are value matching, like they're both kind of mid tones, very close. There's thankfully some shadow breaking it up, so it like really does still read okay. But because the colors are so different, we're kind of getting close to that like clash. It's not there, it works, but I think that the robe is a little saturated feeling. So I might actually do a saturation layer on this and knock it back down. Just because I want this to kind of feel like we're pretty far away. And some of the richness of the color is going to get kind of like lost. So we knock that back a bit. That said, we have like a very rich gold. It's a very strong red as well, so I don't mind it like still standing strong. But I'm thinking either we darken the ribbon on top of the robe just a bit, or we darken the robe around it. But we're also like impacting it with the atmosphere, right? So we need to respect that. We can't kind of like create really deep shadows or anything. We can't darken it significantly. But maybe we just drop the hue a bit more. And then I think I still want like this red ribbon to kind of have a sheen to it, to have a certain shine and shimmer. I'm gonna have like a little bit of it, kind of like really bring out the color that it's got. But I'll fade it off more. I don't need it to be that saturated. Because again, I want it to like feel like it's far enough away. So we'll go more kind of brighter pink, something like that maybe. A little bit more saturated than that. Again, our values are like creeping together a bit too close, potentially. But of course we did squash them down. So maybe I'm just going off on a tangent that's just not working. Do a little bit of experimenting. We're like practically done. I think I'll do the cloud thing, but you know, we have time to just kind of muck around. See what we can push and pull. Cause yeah, like we're not even at 1 o'clock, and I think that I'll just kind of end the stream when we're done this. So we have a half an hour to play around, let's say. So I'll take my lunch at 1. Then I'm off working on other secrets that are very, very exciting. I think you all are going to be pretty interested in it. I know I am. I guess the only hint I'll give is it's related to other streams I've been doing. So there. It's a pretty strong hint, but what it's actually about, you'll never know. Or you will, eventually. But I won't tell you here and now today. So there. You know, I think that's okay there. It didn't really like, I didn't end up doing that thing where I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull them apart value-wise. So maybe I should do this in kind of grayscale form to kind of like really change that. All right, let's do, yeah, we'll do a brightness layer and grab that level of shadow. Just see what we can do with this. I'm thinking that maybe I actually want the robe to do the deeper shadow. That might be it. So I'll use because I mean, if I'm thinking about it in terms of just like what are the materials, the robe is actually supposed to be darker than the ribbon. The ribbon's shiny and saturated. But again, I don't want the shadows to get too deep. I think that might work. I think I want to change the ear hole here real quick. Yeah, good enough. It still looks like a dog ear. Maybe if I make it big. Yeah. Bring it in closer, perhaps. I'm definitely obsessing over details at this point. Okay, so I think we're pretty good on the render of this overall. It's pretty decent. I think that edge here, I think, could be a little bit lost, a little more lost. Let's grab that. Let that ribbon kind of pop out a bit. Great. Okay, pretty happy with that. Give it a save, and I think we could still put the clouds in if we would like. We'll try it. We'll try it. Let's do a layer up here. And I don't know if I'll actually need them. I think we have a good amount of depth here. There's a lot of atmosphere between us and the subject. But let's just see what happens if we throw a cloud or two wrapping around its form. Now, where to position them is also kind of like a little bit of a tricky subject, right? It's like, I don't want to block interesting, important details. I also need to like keep in mind, okay, we're looking up. We're standing at the foot of this mountain, looking up at the skyscraper, right? So I really want these clouds to like wrap around it. Like what I might do is actually draw, you know, like the ellipse where like okay, it's really rough and bad. Even more. Yeah, so we're like trying to wrap the clouds more in those shapes. I'll brighten that up. Nice thing about that cloud is it can go behind the trim here. That's kind of neat. Turn off those clouds. Yeah. We could also put some like vines and stuff wrapping around the form as well if we want. Let's turn off those ellipses. And then we'll hit the clouds with more light. Okay, so let's get like a nice golden glow on these. Why not try that out? Okay, and then I think I need to actually get a little bit deeper shadows in these clouds. Just a little bit where it's kind of like tucked up against the form. I don't know. I don't know if I need the clouds, to be perfectly honest. They almost kind of like distract, right? We're kind of like losing the shapes a bit. So we might try removing some of the clouds that might not be adding anything. Honestly, yeah, you know what? I actually think I don't want the clouds at all. I think it's got enough atmosphere without them. How long have I been doing digital art for? I've probably been doing digital art for like 25 years, maybe around that. Like I've been doing it since I was a kid. Like as soon as I had a computer of my own, where I discovered Paint on like Windows 95 or something like that. And I was doing like pixel art. At least back for the earliest digital painting I can remember that I did was StarCraft back in like 1998. I did some like just like pixel art of Marines and Zerg and stuff like that. But I remember my dad got me like one of those Intuos tablets, like the one of the originals, where it's like a big kind of like piece of plastic, and the drawing portion was just this little kind of like notepad, and it was for doing like signatures for like documents, in like banks or something like that, like big fancy tool that had like super low resolution. You know, like when you're using it, it's like jumping all over the screen. But yeah, I did that, and I also like some of the earlier digital stuff I was doing was more vector based. Um, some of the early MouseHunt stuff was also vector art, and uh, it was always a struggle to do more like an illustrative vector image, but I did some work on that. I did like pamphlets for like nutrition and health, like guides and stuff like that, where I like illustrated fruits and vegetables and medicines and stuff using vector illustration. And they had a certain style, but it was very slow and difficult. Um, and like there were times when I was like painting with my mouse, doing like portraits and stuff like that. But yeah, ever since I really got into digital, I've always kind of like been using it. Um, but like when I went to in high school, I was doing a lot of like I had a special course that I was a part of. It was like a focus program where I was actually in a studio with other artists, and basically the whole day was just workshop of painting. We did like canvases, sculpting, all kinds of different medias. The idea was to like really learn them all, but we didn't do any digital because that wasn't really kind of like in the forte of basically any artists. Is very kind of like outside of the industry idea at the time. Um, and then yeah, I think we're pretty much done with this. I think I'll just put it in time lapse mode and we can just like watch while we just hang out and chat. But then I went to Sheridan, um, and actually I'm gonna move this over here. There we go. Got into Sheridan, um, and as a 4-year bachelor program of applied arts, and I kept wanting to do digital painting in it, but none of the teachers were like really knowledgeable about it. We had like one computer class, and like the teacher was completely unaware of how to use Photoshop kind of thing. So I was ending up like teaching that class as the TA kind of thing. But it wasn't until the final year that I was allowed to convince my professors to let me work in digital and like do my assignments in digital and stuff because I'm like, hey, like I want to get into like concept art or games industry and they're using digital there and like I'm not here to become like a magazine illustrator and do editorial pieces and stuff, which is like pretty much what the jobs used to be for illustrators, right? Um, and so yeah, I only really started to kind of like do more and more and more digital like near the end of college, and then yeah, like as soon as I was kind of like doing actual client work, I was doing all digital, and then eventually got on to the weird and interesting short-term project MouseHunt, where we were like, yeah, we'll make a little mini game. It'll be fun and silly. It's probably not going to do anything, but we'll try it. And yeah, and the story continues. Yeah, so yeah, I've been doing it for certainly most of my life. I've been digitally painting. I've been an artist my whole life, really. Like ever since I could hold a crayon, I've been doodling. But yeah, it's neat to like be able to apply it in different ways too. Like this whole painting of the sheath is like going back to more my roots and kind of like seeing if I can still do that with any aptitude, and it's neat to see that that is something I might be able to kind of like tap into again and maybe do better than I've ever done before. I used to do like canvas paintings. I've done murals and stuff, but those, if I were to look back, I'd be just kind of like shaking my head because it's very early artist when I was actually doing those, and medium like that is it's harder to control. It's more permanent, obviously. There's no undo button. You can't grab a layer and slide it around and flip it around and all that a digital allows for. So it's definitely challenging in many different ways. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of learn more about it again, apply it. But yeah, so this was the mythical giant king's egg. Um, and I hope you all enjoyed. Yeah, like the clouds were kind of alright, but I don't know, they just made it harder to read what the object was in the end. And I think like we're also not looking at it as close as we are here, right? When it's in game, it's going to be shrunk down. And that's also another thing that we should take a look at is just like, does this actually read at scale? So we'll have to shrink that down and see if it looks clear enough. But yeah, so let's take a quick little look-see here. So we're probably viewing it like closer to like this size or this size, right? Um, so I can tell what it is. But like when I had the clouds, uh, I just feel like it's just even more kind of like obscured. We can see the like the waistline, but like it just got a little too muddled. Where at least here there's the edges, and those help tell you what you're looking at. So that just felt more important. Also, I think this very edge here, I need to lighten that just a little more. It's just a little too much of a corner. I want that to feel more round. Yeah. I think that's better. Now, overall, the robes are like significantly lighter than the material would suggest. Um, so I'm like, is that bad? You know, like the material itself in all these other kind of views is definitely like darker. But again, like I think it does kind of help sell this idea that it's like super far away. You know, if you're up close, standing on top of a mountain, and you're looking in the shadows of a rock crevasse, you'll definitely see like the dark kind of mineral and all that. But like, if you stand very far away and you look, you know, like it'd be, you know, lighter like this, I think. Um, yeah, maybe even the shadow or the sorry, the belt needs to get a little more obscured here. Now I'm kind of like, maybe the trim is too bright. I kind of like it actually. Again, like when you have something far away, the light is what kind of persists and travels. The shadows are just the lack of light. So as something's far away and there's enough atmosphere scattering light, the shadows are getting filled in with light from elsewhere, but like the light bouncing off of that is still persisting. It travels, it travels, it travels. Which is why you keep the highlights and brights and all that, but you lose the shadows. It's not that it all just goes to nothing and muddle. Yeah, I'm pretty content with this. I think I'll keep it. Let's do a little exporting on it. Why not? So we have, what are the export requirements for this? Let's see. It's been a year since I've exported eggs. Event, spring egg hunt, 2024 egg hunt. I will make a new folder for eggs. And just making sure it's not in generic items. Good. Go to a previous year, eggs. We have at 333 and full res. Awesome. Sorry, I'm moving around in folders off screen just because I don't want to full res accidentally spoil stuff. There you go. So that's our full res export. I'm going to turn off the backdrop here by actually making that as a draft layer. So that means when I export it, it just turns that layer off. It's a really nice thing Clip Studio can do. So you can do that on your sketch layers. Also, when you're like grabbing colors and such, it'll ignore those layers. So it's just very handy. Spring egg hunt, there you are, 2024. One of the things about Clip Studio is it doesn't keep the layers you're working in it just jumps back to where your file is actually saved. So that's full res. And we need the 333. Of course, if I actually saved this where it will end up, which I can do right now, then I don't need to worry about it jumping around. I just like to save it offline just because it makes it faster. I've had an issue once where I was working off of the shared drive in Clip Studio, and it was a big file, and it ended up getting corrupted, unfortunately. So I just am a little bit extra wary. Okay. Oh, you know what? I didn't name it correctly. It's supposed to say full res. There we go. All right. That's the full res version. And now we do the regular one. This one is at the very weird 333 pixels, which is just something that way back when I was first creating like some of the first items in the game, that was just the size that I was rendering them at. It's such a random size. But that ended up kind of like becoming part of the lexicon of exports, is that dimension. But of course, we illustrate higher res. 800 by 800 is tiny. Still, generally, the smallest items we render at 1,000 pixels, which is more than enough detail for creating something that ends up being like 50 pixels. It's just kind of like the weird legacy of how we've set up files over 16 years. But yeah. Oh yeah, vines. You're right. Hey, we got 2 minutes. Should we put some vines on this? We could try. Let's try. Why not? Yeah, I completely forgot about putting the vines, but it's actually a good thing to put on here because in case there are more eggs that are similar, we want to make sure that, oh, right, that's the one from the Bountiful Beanstalk. Right? And I honestly, I don't mind going a little bit past one. But thank you for reminding me about the vines. Because I think that that is an important thing to include in this. Certainly not required, but not a bad idea. You guys like, ah, what a lovely leaf. It's like Monstera leaf. Oh, and also I'll have a Larry link I should share before I forget. So I'll do that. Just now, let me grab that. Make sure it works. Gift from Larry. Thanks, Larry. Copy link, and I'll put it in the chat here. Boop. And just so that it's here. It might be expired if you're watching this later, but huh, that's giant. Oop. There we go. Boop. It's in the chat, and if you're just watching this as a VOD, you could have rewound and paused. Cool. Okay, so back to the vine. Now, this, I'll just use a clipping mask on it, and we'll go a little richer in it where it's kind of closer to us. But we're going to let the atmosphere steal it away as well. Right, I'll do another layer for the atmosphere actually. But I'll probably worry about that after I've figured out the shading on it. Just really quickly trying to show, okay, that one's going in front, that one's going in front. Great, just kind of figuring out the hierarchy of what's on top of what. Grab a more in the sun. And we don't need to like get too ambitious with the details on this. You know, as long as we can tell what it is. Honestly, if it's too detailed, then we're potentially getting in our own way, right? Something that I used to kind of be my own worst enemy about was just like trying to over detail things when it's like, okay, but this is tiny and actually it looks worse with more detail, because it just kind of like gets muddy when you shrink it to size and it doesn't read clearly. Like, I think honestly one of the most important things is how legible it is ultimately. Okay, so it's good enough. Can see what this is overall. Take a look in grayscale. Sure, it's clearish. All right, and then when we turn the atmosphere on for this, let's see, we want to, let's just start this over again. Have it kind of like really knock that stuff back because it's like coming from behind the character, right? So all the details are kind of like being washed away there. But as it gets closer to us, you can have it kind of come through this fog. Now it's more about just picking up those edges to catch that light. But like again, as we get higher up, we're kind of returning into that just fog up there, essentially. And I wonder if I did a lighten or screen, it would be better. We'll go do lighten. This one's a little closer to us overall, so we don't necessarily need to like get the whole fog effect going. And plants tend to be kind of shiny, waxy surface, so like I think getting a little bit of that, the edges kind of like reflecting the atmosphere around, just so they can read even cleaner too. Because I do want the vines to be legible. And where I place them, they're not necessarily the most kind of clean read. Kind of a lot going on. So I might put that into a group. And see about kind of like grabbing them and just moving them around. That didn't work. Oops. If I put this behind the character and like fade it out, so it's just kind of this detail behind everything, that could work. It's like maybe the vine should be focused in one part, or maybe not. I mean, maybe we just want one vine even. Let's focus on this one. Kind of liked where it was. Maybe this one I just shrink. That might be all right. I think it just has a little too much atmosphere right here. So I'm just going to knock that down. Give it just a little more of that kind of waxy plant color. Great. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Cool. Okay. Save. Let's re-export this. So we have this one at 333, full res at full res, and save, and we're done. Hi, Charlie. Okay. Well, not bad for a single item stream. Again, I'll pop up the time lapse as we exit out of here. We exit out. There's probably so many opportunities for horrible puns that I just skipped out on. My brain was a little too scrambled today to get cracking on all those puns. But, you know, we can't always be excellent, but yeah. Hope you all enjoyed the stream today. It was nice to like go from start to finish. It's a more rare thing for the art streams these days because I tend to do much more epic and detailed illustrations than when I started. And I kind of take more time and care in them too. Just kind of knowing how to spend a little extra kind of effort on things to just enhance them much further. But yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that you found them quite rotten. Uh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Got that sulfuric rotting egg smell on them. You're right. Just enjoying the time lapse with the rest of you, and then off we go. Take my lunch and then work on secrets. Cool. Just waiting for the vine to appear, and then we'll know it's done. Clouds first. There they are. Yeah, it's just they got a little too obscuring. Like, they could look beautiful if I really kind of started with them and kind of worked it from the beginning, but yeah, they just took away from it ultimately because it is a tiny image. It becomes a small item, so I just prefer it is clean. All right, and that's that. GG, everybody. So thanks for tuning in. Glad you enjoyed, and I had a nice time. Thank you for being a part of this, as always. And so next week should be Dave. If not, I'll see you again. But yeah, I'll probably see you in 2 weeks' time. So again, in the chat, let me just put the Larry link for you all. Copy and paste. There it is. And I shall see you next time. Happy hunting, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And I shall see you later. Okay. We'll catch you later, actually. All right. Bye for now.